The Green Bay Packers 2014 season went in a lot of ways like the past several seasons have under head coach Mike McCarthy and quarterback Aaron Rodgers. A Packers team that wins double-digit games, a Packers team that makes the playoffs, and it's like lather, rinse, repeat. You look at the Packers in 2014, yet again, NFC North champions for the fourth consecutive year and the fourth consecutive year, excuse me. They make it to the NFC Championship game where they suffer a heartbreaking overtime loss to the Seattle SEAHAWKS. You know, people will talk about Dez Bryant and whether or not it was a catch in the divisional game and whether or not the Cowboys could have beat him. You know, we still forget the fact that there were still 3+ minutes left in that game. That's one thing that's never talked about is the fact that the Packers were at home with Aaron Rodgers, would have had the ball, and would have only had to kick a field goal to tie it up. Just saying. So, on the one hand, people will say the season could have been different. Imagine how much differently things could have went if the Packers didn't implode in Seattle in that NFC Championship game. They didn't surrender that 16-point lead. If they would have sat there early on and snuffed the life out of the Seattle Seahawks when they clearly had them on the ropes and they had them by the throat. You know, this is a Packers team that could have went to the Super Bowl, played New England, and maybe beat New England by double digits. It's just a thought. So this is a Green Bay Packers team that in a lot of ways feel like they ended the season in a disappointing fashion because it could have been so much more, and frankly, they're probably right. So this is a team with some big-time expectations heading into this 2015 season, and again, understandably, justifiably so. You know, one of the things I really like about the way the Packers organization is run, even though I hate the Green Bay Packers, I detest the Green Bay Packers, and I wish them nothing but the worst, I have to give credit where credit is due. This is an organization that gets it. This is an organization that understands how championship teams are built, how championship teams are maintained and kept together. You build through the draft. You stay away from the temptation of big splurges in free agency. You create all types of flexibility when you do that, especially when you draft well. When players come on the market that you don't want to retain or you don't feel the need to have to retain, you don't have to retain them. You don't have to re-sign them. And all the while, the players that do come up for free agency, if you want to, you can re-sign basically anybody the hell you want. So you give yourself all types of control. Like when you look at who the Packers lost in the offseason, A.J. Hawk, Brad Jones, Trayvon Williams, Davon House, Jared Boykin. None of those guys are going to really make the Packers sad that they're gone. You know, some of you might say, well, maybe Trayvon Williams. But this is Trayvon Williams, I believe, was on the wrong side of 30 anyways. The Packers didn't want to pay any of them. They let them go. They re-signed the guys that they wanted to re-sign. The Randall Cobbs of the world, the Brian Bulagas of the world, the John Coons of the world, even the B.J. Raji of the world. Another one-year type of gamble deal where it doesn't cost you a whole lot of money and hopefully he plays big in a contract year. That's the type of stuff the Packers can do. It allows them to keep a young core in place with Aaron Rodgers, with a Jordy Nelson, now a Randall Cobb and a Bulaga in the mix, you know, with the Clay Matthews in the fold and so on and so forth. It's their ability to draft well. It's their ability to have a plan and stick with it. And it's their ability to restrain themselves, especially when it comes to spending big money in free agency, that makes them in large part the organization that they are today. And again, this is a team that builds primarily through the draft. You look at their draft. They had needs in the secondary. They went after versatile athletes like Demarius Randall in the first round, the safety out of Arizona State. Quentin Rollins, the corner out of Miami of Ohio in the second round, who played exactly 1 year of major college football. They went after a punt returner who could maybe play some outside of wide receiver as well down the road in Ty Montgomery, an inside linebacker like Jake Ryan. These are all guys that in different ways could potentially contribute right away as rookies. But again, bringing an influx of talent into the fold, guys that could be long-term contributors that bring you all types of flexibility that can learn the Green Bay Packer way, if you will. Now, in terms of strengths and concerns for this team, you start off with strengths. You start off with Aaron Rodgers, the best quarterback in the National Football League, period. Exclamation point, open parentheses, close parentheses, underline, bold, and italicized bitch. Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in the National Football League. And when you have Aaron Rodgers, you always have a chance. When you have Aaron Rodgers, he can always keep you in the mix of being a contending team, period. But it's not just about him. You look at that receiving core. You talk about Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, two big play threats on the outside. And you could line up Randall Cobb in the slot as well. You throw a Devontae Adams, another potentially big play guy on the outside. It's just all types of problems. Got that running game, that between the tackles game, but with Eddie Lacy, an offensive line that has improved over the past couple of years and is better than sometimes it's given credit for. And you look at that side of the ball, and that's the identity of the Green Bay Packers. They're a team that can score points, and a lot of them, and sometimes when they need to in a big hurry. But most importantly of all, I think the single biggest strength for the Green Bay Packers outside of Aaron Rodgers, the consistency they have in leadership from their general manager running the show in Ted Thompson, and even their head coach Mike McCarthy, who I think is a quality coach, is the chemistry and continuity they just have as an organization as a whole. Look at how long Ted Thompson's been running the show. Look at how long Mike McCarthy's been in the mix as a head coach. Look at how long Aaron Rodgers has been their starting quarterback. Look at how many guys they've kept into the fold for so long. That chemistry, that continuity, that familiarity, that understanding of position, of role, of scheme is so vital and so hard to come by in today's NFL. The Green Bay Packers, in a lot of ways, are the antithesis of a modern NFL team. They can keep so many of these guys that they want to keep in the fold for so long. That chemistry and continuity can play a big role and make all the difference in the world in big-time situations. Now, in terms of concerns, this isn't a perfect team. It might sound like nothing but a Green Bay Packer love fest, but there are concerns mostly on the defensive side of the ball. I look at inside linebacker. How much are they going to have to play Clay inside this year? Do they really have appealing alternatives there? That was a major weakness for that defense, and now you've let A.J. Hawk go. You were compensating last year by playing Clay Matthews there so much when he's more naturally an outside linebacker, and that's where he belongs, even though he can be a disruptive force still on the inside. What did they have at the inside linebacker position? Then you look at the secondary. And yes, you've got Sam Shields. You've got a guy like Casey Hayward, but you've got a lot of young guys in that secondary. You're talking about Clinton Dix, last year's first-round pick. You're talking about your first and second-round pick from this year in Demarius Randall and Quentin Rollins. Young secondaries have a tendency to get burned and burned badly sometimes in key moments and situations. So if this is a Packers team that struggles in certain stretches to get any type of pass rush on the outside, what the hell could happen to that secondary with all those young guys who lack that familiarity with each other, who lack that chemistry and that continuity and cohesiveness? That could be a major concern and an ultimate Achilles heel for this Packers organization for this 2015 season. Now, in terms of players to watch, I'll give you two on offense and a few on defense. I look at the offensive end. Devontae Adams, their second-round pick last year from Fresno State. You saw what he could do in the playoffs. You saw what he could mean to that Packers offense. If you've got a Devontae Adams progressing and improving in 2015 and being an even more consistent, reliable weapon for Aaron Rodgers on the outside, imagine how much more difficult it is to game plan and strategize for that Packers offense. You've got Jordy Nelson, big play threat on the outside. You've got Devontae Adams. Now you can line up Randall Cobb all over the damn plays, and good luck defending him. And another guy that could really make that Packers offense even more explosive in the passing game, but also open up things in the running game as well, is Richard Rodgers, their third-round pick, I believe it was, from last year. Here's a guy, at moments, I saw some flashes. Not in a consistent fashion, not a lot of them, but there were some flashes. Corliss is what Corliss is. He's not that type of guy. A Richard Rodgers in year two could, in theory, take a step, take a progression, and if he becomes the type of weapon that your Michael Finley once was in this Packers offense for Aaron Rodgers, the Packers offense goes to a whole different level of dangerous and explosive. And then on the defensive end, I look at last year's fourth-round pick, Carl Bradford from Arizona State. Here's a guy that could bring some pass rush from the middle, a physical guy. I really like Carl Bradford, and I like the fact that they might be trying him inside. And I think if he does get a chance to play inside, he could stick inside, and he could be a bit of a difference maker for them on the inside of their 3-4 defense. And then I look back at that secondary. I got to look at last year's first-round pick, Clinton Dix. He had some moments last year, but he had those type of moments too. And then I also look at Demarius Randall and Quentin Rollins, your two high picks from this year. Those are potentially three young starters in your secondary, or at least three young secondary players that are going to play significant snaps for you in 2015. Again, that's probably not the area you want to have a bunch of young talent is in the secondary. These are guys that it's going to be vital for this Packers defense that they progress and improve and get more comfortable in their skin and their roles in that defense at the NFL level throughout the year. Now, in terms of the schedule for the Green Bay Packers, they've got that first place schedule, but it hasn't hurt them the past few years. I don't see where it makes a big deal now. They do benefit from the fact that they get to play both Seattle and Dallas at Lambeau Field. I don't know how the hell they managed to pull that one off, but they did. A couple of stretches of note for the Packers in their schedule. You got to look at weeks 7 and 8. They got to travel to Denver, and then they got to travel to Carolina. There would be a chance where you could sit there and say it's possible that they could lose both of those games. But when you have Aaron Rodgers travels well. Elements of that offense travel well. If they could find a way to beat either Carolina or Denver, especially Carolina, who made themselves be a major contender in the NFC in 2015, that could bode very well for the Packers and perhaps their chances of not only winning the NFC North, but perhaps getting a first-round bye or even home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs. But the real critical stretch of this season for the Packers, I think, comes in December. They've got 3 of those 4 games on the road. They've got to go to Detroit. They've got Dallas at Lambeau. They've got to go to Oakland, and they've got to go to Arizona. Now, you're going to laugh when I sit there and throw Oakland in the mix, but let's put it this way. Detroit was an 11-win team in 2014. Even though I expect them to just take a step back in 2015, they're still not chump bitches, and they're a divisional opponent. It's in Detroit. That's a serious game for the Green Bay Packers. Then you have to play Dallas in Lambeau. Even though it's December, Dallas showed last year based off their style of play that they can go into a cold weather environment, be competitive, and win. And that's a team that's going to have revenge on their mind. Then you've got Oakland sandwiched in between that Dallas game and then another road game in Arizona. So that's a 2-week stretch where the Packers are going to be away from Green Bay, away from the confines of Lambeau Field, so to speak. That Oakland game with Detroit, Dallas, and then afterwards Arizona looks like one of those sandwich games. It looks like one of those real trap games. And you expect the Oakland Raiders to at least be a little bit improved. That's a team you're playing in Oakland, similar to the Packers last year where they kind of pissed it down their leg against Buffalo late in the season. That could be that type of game, and that could be a critical game for them in terms of where they want to position themselves for the NFC playoff picture. You've got Detroit, Dallas, Arizona, 3 playoff teams from last year, and a team you would expect to be a little improved in Oakland that's sandwiched in the middle at the beginning of a road trip. It's a tough stretch in December for the Green Bay Packers for sure. In terms of my overall thoughts, I still think the Packers are clearly the cream of the crop in the NFC North. It disgusts me to say it. I hate saying it, but I can't deny it either. I mean, to sit there and say, the Packers are going to win 6 games because you're stupid and your uniforms are ugly and Aaron Rodgers is dumb, well, that's just ridiculous. This is clearly the cream of the crop of the NFC North. They've won 4 straight division titles. They've made the playoffs 6 straight years. They've got a Super Bowl title mixed in there. Damn near could have went to the Super Bowl this past season. They are the cream of the crop in that division, period. They are the standard bearers. They are one of the gold standards, not just in the NFC, but frankly all of the National Football League. When you have Aaron Rodgers, you always have a chance. Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in the National Football League. He is that dude. He is the truth. He is the difference maker. You have him, you always have a chance. It's the same way I used to look at Favre for so many years with the Green Bay Packers. The biggest thing, though, for the Green Bay Packers is their experience, their familiarity, their continuity, their chemistry. That is so critical and so important. So many of these guys that are in important positions, in starting roles or even in backup depth roles, have been with the organization for 1 year now, 2 years now, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. So they know the system. They know what's expected of them. They've grown up with these other players as NFL players. I mean, that makes a huge difference. When you're always trying to put pieces in different places and you're trying to get things to be interchangeable, the Green Bay Packers pretty much are who they are. They have that consistency. They have that ability to grow together. And that's a large reason why I think that this could very well be that year for the Green Bay Packers. Maybe that loss in the NFC Championship game, messes them up. I doubt it. Maybe Aaron Rodgers gets hurt. Good luck. That's what you got to hope for, because otherwise this Packers team is legit. They could win as few as 10 or 11 games just based off of the toughness of their schedule, having that first place schedule that they have. But honestly, I could see this team winning 13 or 14 games because they've had that first place schedule the past several years now, and it really doesn't affect them all that much. I mean, they're just a really good team. They're a quality team with the best quarterback in the league. So many guys that have been in the position they are for several years. They understand their roles. They understand the system. There's all types of chemistry and continuity there. This is a serious team, and a team that I expect to be legit Super Bowl contenders this year.